Hi everybody, I'd like to share a video playthrough of Avalon Hill's 1991 History of the World. This session report hopes to highlight some advanced rules and variants I discussed in a previous review video. And once I had the game out, I thought, why not? I'll attempt to simulate a 6-player game so you can see how it all works in practice. And this video is mainly for those of you who haven't actually had a chance to play it. Hopefully you'll get a sense of the larger story the game can tell, and I always have fun making these types of videos. Anyway, I assign characters or avatars to the colors or sides. I find it makes a story more relatable. So in this game, Mr. Green will play dark green, Colonel Mustard is yellow, Mrs. Peacock is blue, Miss Scarlet is red, Lady Lavender is purple, and Olive is the old lady. She'll play the olive drab color. And now, welcome to episode 1, 3000 to 1400 BC. So Mr. Green draws the Sumerians. He goes first. Green finesses the expansion of the Sumerians so that the army or expansion bypasses the Middle Tigris and goes into Zagros and then ends up in the Levant via Upper Tigris. And this is significant because he captures 2 resources and builds a monument in his capital city. He has a Kingdom Canaanites card. He has to play it on turn 1, so he gets to place a city and an army in Palestine. He ends up with 10 points, and that's a lot for the first turn. Lady Lavender draws Egypt. She goes second. She decides to take all of North Africa. She gets the 1-point bonus on the victory table for sweeping the area. She does burn a reallocation card to expand into the Arabian Peninsula. This move scores her an extra 2 points for presence in the Middle East. She ends up with 8 points. Miss Peacock draws the Minoans. It's a weak power, although they are insulated in the Mediterranean. She doesn't have good early game cards at all. All she can do is establish control in Southern Europe, and that with her capital scores 5 points, and she can't do anything else. Miss Scarlet draws Indus Valley. She deploys in such a way as to both maximize points and prepare for the emergence of the Aryans in the Turanian plain. She does something wicked smart. She plays allies and expands into 2 extra empty lands, thereby taking Eastern Ghats and Upper Indus for the resources necessary for monument construction in her capital. She also takes control of India and gets a toehold in the Middle East, but purposely leaves the Persian plateau open for the Aryans, hoping this will give the Aryans an open corridor into the heart of the Sumerian Empire. She ends up with 8 points, tied with Lady Lavender. The most significant development of Epoch 1, perhaps, though, is the total absence of Babylonia. In this version of history, it doesn't emerge as a significant power. Every turn in a 6-player game, at least one potential power does not activate, and the Sumerians, of course, benefit the most from not having the Babylonians in this game. Mustard draws the Shang Dynasty in China. He also has to play an Epoch 1 card, the Hittites. So with 2 capitals and control of presence in 2 areas, he scores 9 points. It's also the first time we've seen more than 1 unit in a land. Hittites come with 3 armies, so he decides to double up in Eastern Anatolia and also takes Western Anatolia. And I just used a dime as a unit chip in his capital there. So this is the board state before Olive controls the final Aryan Empire of Epoch 1. Up until this point, there's been no combat whatsoever. But this is about to change because the Aryans don't start with the capital, so they have to expand aggressively to score any points. Olive plans to play population explosion and drive into the Middle East via the Persian plateau with hopes of ultimately sacking the Sumerian capital. So let's see what happens. So Olive does play population explosion, which gives her 7 armies total. She drives into the Middle East and does take She only lost 1 battle. She killed 2 Sumerian units and knocked Scarlet out of the Middle East. Olive scores 2 points for infrastructure and 4 points for dominance in the Middle East. This leaves her with a total of 6 points. Green gets lucky with a preeminence draw of 5 bonus points for winning Epoch 1, but the Sumerians lose and that should hurt moving forward. Welcome to Epoch 2, 1400 to 450 BC. Before I start the second round, I have to make a minor correction. At the end of Epoch 1, Mr. Green got the 5-point preeminence token, and I moved his score marker to 15 points. That's not proper procedure. You're supposed to simply reward the token face down and only reveal the value of preeminence tokens at the end of the game. So I moved Green back 10 points and gave him a random token that I don't know the value of. It's just a better way to play. You really can't be sure who's winning or by how much. Also, I forgot I had combat arrow tokens. And we'll use these on the board from now on to highlight points of action, so I don't have to point with my finger all the time. On the second turn, the point value of every area levels up by 1 degree. To start Epoch 2, Miss Peacock draws the Greek city-states, but she decides to pass a card to Miss Scarlet. She is hoping to draw the Assyrians or the Persians instead. The gamble pays off. The next card she draws is the Persians. Lucky. Next, Olive draws the Vedic city-states. She decides to pass the card to Mr. Green, once again passing on an empire. Draw pays off. The next card she flips is the Carthaginians, and she views this as an upgrade. Lady Lavender draws the Scythians. She keeps the card. Finally, Mustard draws the Chow Dynasty. It's another Chinese empire. This always seems to happen in every game I play. Somebody always seems to become entrenched in China all by themselves. Usually they become very powerful if left unchecked, but we'll see what happens. There are no Assyrians in this version of history. It's the second time in a row a significant power based in the very heart of the Middle East fails to take root. What will that mean moving forward? Let's find out. Even though Assyrian turn, Mustard plays first with the Chow Dynasty. He does something devious. He plays Disaster and gets good purchase with the card. It's going to destroy completely along with its monument. Scarlet's Mohenjo-Daro capital is likewise reduced and it loses its monument. So no Epoch 1 monuments survive thanks to various disasters. Colonel Mustard takes the remainder of China with the Chow Dynasty. Unfortunately, he blots out 1/3 of the Shangs on the Wei River. He has no choice but to do this, but he now owns 2 capitals side by side behind a Great Wall. He scores 2 points for sweeping China. He gets 4 points for his capitals, and he gets 6 points for control of the land. He also scores 6 points with the Hittites that he still has in the Middle East from Epoch 1, and that's another 5 points. So altogether that's 17 plus 9 equals 26 total points at the end of Epoch 2. Mr. Green is up next with the Vedic city-states. His empire emerges smack dab in the middle of the Indus Valley civilization. He's going to play 2 cards. Firstly, he must play Kingdom Etruscans in the Northern Apennines. And second, he will be a jerk and play a disaster card on Colonel Mustard to reduce his newly minted twin capitals in China to mere normal cities. We'll say Anyang and Luoyang are terribly damaged by an earthquake. How unfortunate. As far as the Vedics are concerned, they plan to expand unopposed into the Ganges Valley and Delta, and they will cross into eastern Deccan. This move allows for 2 attempts at Mohenjo-Daro in the south. If they are able to wreck the Indus Valley capital on the first attack, they will then attempt to hit Eastern Ghats for a chance at 2 resources and a monument build. The Vedic campaign in India is 100% successful. They win 2 battles. They destroy Mohenjo-Daro and take 2 resources for a monument build in their capital, Mithila. Green scores 14 points for Epoch 2. He gets dominance in India for 4 points, 3 points for infrastructure. He has presence in the Middle East with the Canaanites still in Palestine for 4 points. And he has the Etruscans in Southern Europe for 3 points. 7 and 7 is 14. To go with 10 gives him 24 total. We know at least we will have a lead change this epoch as Green comes in 2 points shy of Mustard. Miss Scarlet is up next with the Greek city-states. She's going to play Expert Troops Straits. This removes the defender's bonus die. She can use this in 2 attacks, one to attack the Crete capital of Knossos and the other to get into western Anatolia. She's going to build a navy in the East Med. It's the first time we've seen naval power in the game. Beyond wiping out the Minoans, she has modest designs in the region. She's going to double up on some of her territories rather than spread herself too thinly. Scarlet's turn started off well. She wiped out the Minoans without any losses, but even with expert troops, she failed twice to cross into western Anatolia. She lost 2 armies and only caused 2 casualties to the Epoch 1 Minoans, who are now extinct. She scores dominance in southern Europe for 4 points, 3 for infrastructure, and 1 point for the East Med Navy. She also scores 2 points for presence in India for a total of 10 points, plus 8 equals 18 total points after round 2. The next power up is the Scythians, controlled by Lady Lavender. They emerge from the Caucasus. They don't start with a capital, but she's going to burn a leader card to recruit the great general named Kashtaridi. That's the name on the Civ card, I didn't make it up. She feels she has to do this because the Scythians have to cross mountains just to get to Mustard's Hittites, who are double strength in their capital. The priority will be the total destruction of the Hittites. Then, depending on how things go, they plan on fanning out in two directions across the Middle East. Best case scenario, they hope to achieve dominance in the Middle East with this move. They will have to reduce both the Aryans and what's left of the Sumerian Empire. The Scythians kill the Hittites off, but they lost two armies in eastern Anatolia, taking the Hittite capital. This meant they had to cancel the western arm of their offensive, the push into the Levant. Scythians also kicked the Aryans out of Zagreb and the Persian Salt Desert. Overall, Lady Lavender scored heavily this round because of her inroads into the Middle East with the Scythians, in addition to still having an unmolested Egyptian empire in full control of North Africa. She scores 10 points for everything in Egypt and all of North Africa. And with the Scythians, she scores 7 more points, 6 for dominance in the Middle East and 1 point for a city. That's 17. 17 plus 8 equals 25. You now have 3 players all in a very close battle for first place. It's Ola's turn with the Carthaginians. She's going to play reallocation since she does not intend to fight for control over the East Med with the Greek city-states. She will convert that navy into a fort for Carthage. The Romans are coming in round 3, so best prepare ahead of time. Her ambitions in North Africa and Southern Europe will be fairly modest. She just wants the 2 open resource territories in Southern Europe, and beyond that she aims for a mere dominance of North Africa. She would rather reinforce some of her holdings rather than overreach. She isn't strong enough to conquer all of Egypt, though she will attempt to take its capital, Memphis. That did not go according to plan. The Egyptians fought the Carthaginians hard. Carthage lost 2 armies taking Libya. They should have just cut their losses. The Egyptians saved Memphis. Anyway, Olive scores 3 points for tenuous Aryan presence in the Middle East. She scores 2 points for presence in Southern Europe, 2 points for presence in North Africa, and 4 more points for infrastructure, including a navy and a monument. Her total is 11 for Epoch 2. Her grand total is 17. The final play for Epoch 2 is Mrs. Peacock's Persians. She's looking to do some serious damage this round. She will play reallocation and convert 3 navies into coins. She buys a fort for Persepolis. She will double strength the capital, and she also buys an extra army. Now is the time for a power move, so she will also play elite troops so as to win all ties in combat. She wants to spread the Persians out in 2 opposite directions. The far eastern campaign is the priority. It aims to capture the Vedic city-state capital of Mithila, then continue through the Ganges Basin and ultimately turn north to establish a presence in China. She will have to traverse mountains to break into Sichuan, however. Western campaign aims to destroy whatever is left of the old Hittite settlement in eastern Anatolia, then continue south through the Levant to ultimately destroy the old Canaanite city in Palestine. Depending on how things go, sacking Memphis might be an option. Perhaps further reinforcement of the Persian Empire could do. If successful, this move will leave Persepolis as the only true capital left in the eastern half of the civilized world. The Persian turn was an overwhelming success. They accomplished everything they set out to do. They also used their last army to sack the Egyptian capital. This leaves Athens, Carthage, and Persepolis as the only true capitals left on the board. The Persians killed a lot of people. They killed 4 Vedic armies, 2 Scythian, 1 Chao army in China. They killed an Indus army, 2 Aryans, and of course 1 Egyptian army. They didn't lose a single battle, in fact. Peacock scores 2 points presence in China, 4 points dominance in India, 6 points dominance in the Middle East, 2 points presence in North Africa, 6 more points for cities and monuments. That's 20 points total. Her grand total is now 25, tied with Lady Lavender. Mustard wins round 2 barely. He gets the preeminence token. The highlight of Epoch 2 was the Persian Empire taking Peacock from last to second place. There are 2 trailing sides now, but both suffered humiliating defeats in battle. Scarlet's elite Greek troops were defeated by the Hittites, and that was costly. So was Olive's defeat in Libya, where the Egyptians beat her Carthaginians in battle. In Epoch 2, we also saw the Minoans go extinct. Mustard's minor ally, the Hittites, got destroyed. And finally, the Persians eliminated the Canaanites in Palestine. That concludes Epoch 2. Onward. Welcome to Epoch 3, 450 BC to 300 AD. In this round, we start to see point value stagnation in the Middle East and North Africa. China, India, and Southern Europe increase in value, while Northern Europe and Southeast Asia begin to score points. Olive draws Maria, a true middle power, so she gambles and passes this card to Mr. Green. She subsequently draws Macedonia, so a market improvement. Remember, we're playing expert empire draws. Only 1 redraw is allowed, and anyone who gets past a card must play it. Next, Scarlet draws the Sassanids, another middle power. She's looking for the Romans, so she passes a card to Lady Lavender. She redraws the Han Dynasty, so it's a minor improvement. Peacock draws next, and it happens to be the Romans. She keeps them, of course. Mustard goes last and gets the Sungnu, another Asian power, albeit a much weaker one this time. The Celts do not rise to power in this game. Everyone will have to plot against Mrs. Peacock in this third epoch, otherwise she'll gap the field with her great back-to-back Civ draws, Persia and the Romans. The good news is, no single side in any game such as this one can hope to fend off 5 different opponents all at once, you would think, but we'll see what happens. No Celts, so we start with Olive's Macedonians. Olive will play a great leader card, in addition to Siegecraft. Here is the plan. First, the Macedonians are going to take the wide open, rugged terrain of Northern Europe. This is a free move, basically, since the Celts would have deployed there. Next, Olive's going to do her part to pull down the Persian Empire. She's going to drive into the enemy's heartland, with Persepolis being the ultimate objective. She has the leader to do it, Alexander the Great, and she has the equipment and the numbers to launch a very formidable Eastern campaign. Depending on how things go, she's going to leave open a Levant option or a minor push into the Upper Tigris to finish off the last vestige of the old Sumerian Empire. Her last priority is Athens. She will only attack the Greek capital if everything else goes according to plan. That was a hard-fought campaign. Macedonia accomplishes her main objectives, but must cancel the move against Athens due to casualties taken in the east. The Macedonians reach Persepolis and take it, finally, but they lose 4 armies in fighting in the Middle East. In total, the Macedonians defeat 4 Persian armies, 1 Greek army, 1 Scythian army, and they also finally extinguish the Sumerians. To honor the successes of Alexander the Great, Olive gets to build a monument in Pella. They score 3 points for the control of Northern Europe. They have dominance in Southern Europe for 6 points, 6 more points for dominance in the Middle East, and 2 points for presence in North Africa. For ships, cities, and monuments, they get 9 points, 26 points total for Epoch 3. This gives Olive a grand total of 43 points. It's Green's turn with Maria. He plays the Mayan Empire. This will be his only event card for the third epoch. He will gladly place its capital, Tikal, in Central America. Will continue to score points into later rounds as the ancient New World empires are so remote and hard to get at this stage in the game. Anyway, the Marian's aim is to seize control of India and establish at least a presence in Southeast Asia. He will have to destroy the former Vedic city of Mithila, now held by the Persians, to do this. This was once a capital city that he owned. Depending on how things go, Green might try to finish the Scythians off in the Middle East with the battle in the Persian Salt Desert. Maria had a successful turn. For the cost of 2 armies, they killed 4 Persian, 1 Scythian, and the very last Indus Valley army. They score 3 points presence in Southern Europe because they still have the Etruscans there. You get 3 points presence in the Middle East, 1 point presence in Southeast Asia, and 9 points for control of India. For infrastructure, including Tikal, they get an extra 6 points. That's 22 points for the round. And Green's grand total now is 46. Miss Scarlet is up next with the Han Dynasty. She's going to play Civil War on Mr. Green's Maria. Apart from that, she's going to attempt to sweep China. This may be beyond her reach, but if she does and has any armies left, she will arm her navy in the South China Sea. Miss Scarlet hasn't been rolling well at all for what seems like the entire game. Her rebels did take the Marian capital of Eastern Ghats, but they were defeated in the Upper Indus. Inside China, the Han lost 4 armies in combat. They had so many casualties, in fact, they had to change plans on the fly. Instead of pressing the battle into the interior, they decided on a safer option. They diverted south to establish dominance in Southeast Asia. The Han defeated a Shang army, 3 Chao armies, a Vedic army, and 1 Marian army. She also succeeded in destroying the former capitals of Anyang and Luoyang. Scarlet scores 2 points for dominance of Southeast Asia, 6 points for dominance of China, 3 points for presence in India, 3 points presence in Southern Europe. She scores an additional 8 points for cities and navies. That's 22 points total for her turn. Her grand total is now 40 points. Colonel Mustard has the Sungnu. It's a small empire that springs out of Mongolia. He doesn't want to waste good cards on this turn, so he just plays Migrants Australia for future considerations. His mission this round will be to get over the Great Wall and capture the Han capital of Chang'an. If he's lucky, he may also push as far as Sichuan to kick the Persians out of China. It's not much, but the Sungnu accomplished their mission. They took Chang'an and got dominance in China. They lost an army in combat, but killed 2 Han and 1 Persian army. Mustard only scores 6 points for land and 2 points for infrastructure this turn. Overall, he's at 34 points now. It looks like he's going from first to last. It's Mrs. Peacock's turn with the Roman Empire. She has to play Kingdom Kush, and she will also play Julius Caesar, a great leader card. This is the plan. Sweep Southern Europe, kill off the Etruscans and the Greeks, kick the Macedonians out of Europe, Southern Europe, take control of Northern Europe, take back the Mediterranean Sea, east and west, finally attack and destroy the Carthaginian capital. Beyond that, she plans to triple reinforce her capital, Rome, to prepare for the next round. This will be a more compact version of the Roman Empire. Historically, it would have been more wide-ranging. Still, it should be enough here to secure Mrs. Peacock a comfortable lead. So that was a fiasco. The Romans lost 6 legions in battle, even with a leader. The Romans swept southern Europe and took the Mediterranean, but it was a very costly operation. So much so that Peacock had to settle for mere presence in northern Europe. Far more seriously, the siege of Carthage failed. The Romans destroyed the fortifications, but were not able to secure the capital before they ran out of armies. The Etruscans and the Greeks went extinct. The Romans defeated 2 Greek armies, 2 Macedonian armies, an Etruscan army, a Carthaginian army, and a navy, and 1 Greek navy. Peacock scores 12 points for sweeping southern Europe. She scores 1 point for presence in northern Europe. She scores 2 points for presence in North Africa. She gets 3 points for presence in the Middle East, and 3 points for presence in India. So it's 21 points for land, plus 10 points for infrastructure, including navies. 31 points total for round 3, for a grand total of 56. It was a disappointing run for the Romans, but it was still more than enough for Blue to take a comfortable lead. It's Lady Lavender's turn with the Sassanids. She will play Migrants North America. Sassanids plan to expand in opposite directions, both east and west, out of Zagros. They want dominance in the Middle East and presence in North Africa and India. The Sassanids just barely accomplished their goals. They lost 2 armies in combat, but they defeated 4 Persian armies and 2 Macedonian armies. They demolished what used to be Persepolis and what was their former capital of Egypt, scored 2 points for presence in North Africa, 6 points for dominance in the Middle East, and 3 points for presence in India. They get an additional 4 points for cities and monuments, 15 points total. Lavender's grand total is also 40 points, so she is now tied with Miss Scarlet. Mrs. Peacock is awarded a preeminence token. So far we have seen lead changes each round. This is the game state after 3 epochs. Main takeaway from Epoch 3 is that the point totals are now very spread out. Mustard's fall from first place was spectacular. Will the points remain this way, or will they tighten up? The next round is maybe my favorite. I like playing Epoch 4. It's the start of the Dark Ages. The theme we can be sure to anticipate is the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Welcome to Epoch 4, 300 to 750 AD. This round there are a couple of point value changes to land areas, namely Northern Europe and Southeast Asia. Both level up in value. Everything else remains the same. Colonel Mustard draws first. He gets the Goths. He decides to play them only because he's deathly afraid of redrawing the Khmers. If that were to happen, his entire game could be ruined because he's already so far behind first place. Next, it's Scarlet. She draws the Khmers, but she passes them off to Miss Peacock, who is way out in front. Scarlet redraws the Arabs, and that's a huge upgrade. Lady Lavender then draws the Tangs and decides to keep them. Olive then draws the Huns. She keeps them. Lastly, Mr. Green draws the Guptas, and he has to hold the card because there is nobody left to hand off to. And so by process of elimination, we discover there will be no Byzantine Empire in this version of history. They just don't emerge as a significant power. So Green starts Epoch 4 with the Guptas. He will play barbarians, and he will have them descend out of the Alps to attack the neighboring territories. The Guptas will attempt to kick the Han out of eastern India. If they capture eastern Ghats and the Ganges Delta without losses, they will try for a risky move over mountains into the Hindu Kush to kill off some Scythians. This will give the Guptas a chance to sweep India. First off, the Romans defeated the barbarians in central Massif, the very first attack, so the card had no effect whatsoever. In fact, Mr. Green's Guptas also got hammered in combat against the Han. The plan had to change unexpectedly due to losses. The Guptas lost half their army, 4 units total, just to defeat 2 Han armies in eastern India. They decided to occupy Sumatra and arm their navy in the Bay of Bengal to avoid further die rolls. This was the worst showing by any empire thus far. Still, Green scores 6 for dominance in India, 4 for dominance in Southeast Asia, 3 for presence in the Middle East. They get 6 points for cities, monuments, and navies. 19 points total for a new grand total of 65. The Goths are up next. Mustard needs to get back into the game, so he decides to also play a barbarian card, but he will also augment the Goths with advanced weaponry. His barbarians will also descend from the Alps into Roman territories. The Goths plan to first take control of Northern Europe, then attack into the heart of the Roman Empire. If everything goes well, they will end up in Rome itself. They also plan to contest the Western Mediterranean. The barbarians conquered the central Massif region, but were stopped by the Macedonians in northern Gaul. The Goths themselves had a tough time in northern Europe fighting the Macedonians. They lost 3 armies in the north, but still had just enough strength left to drive south and take Rome with their very last army. They had to cancel their West Mediterranean naval operation, however. Mustard's Goths score 6 points for control of northern Europe, 3 points for presence in southern Europe, 6 points for dominance in China. For infrastructure, they get an additional 4 points, and that's 19 for a grand total of 53. Next up, we have Olive with the Huns. She will play Jewish Revolt and elite troops. She will move south out of the western steppe in 2 opposite directions. The eastern arm of the Hun offensive will go into India with the aim of capturing the Gupta capital of Pataliputra. In the west, they want to rush into the Middle East and take Ctesiphon, the Sassanid capital. She'll also terminate the Scythians once and for all in the Caucasus as a corollary to the western offensive. If the Huns have anything left after these objectives are met, they will fan out from Zagros. The Jewish revolt kicks the Sassanids out of Palestine, but the rebels also lose their army. The Huns lose their elite troops in the first battle with the Sassanids as they were trying to cross the mountains into Hindu Kush. They retire the Scythians from the game. The Huns had a terrible time fighting the old Maurya in India. They took multiple defeats in Hindu Kush, Upper Indus, even the Ganges Valley. They were stopped well short of the Gupta capital city. In the west, they did fare better. They captured the Sassanid capital. Overall, though, the Huns took 50% casualties in battle. They lost 5 armies. They killed 1 Scythian, 3 Sassanids, and 2 Maurya armies. The Huns score 6 points for dominance in the Middle East, 2 points for presence in North Africa, 3 points for presence in India. For cities and monuments, they get an additional 7 points. Attila gets to build a monument at least. That's 18 points for a grand total of 61. There is no Byzantine Empire in this game, so Lady Lavender is up next with the Tang Dynasty. She decides to play 2 cards because she realizes she has a very good chance at taking the lead this round and thus winning a preeminence token. The Tangs will play Civil Service and Astronomy. These cards should facilitate access into both Southeast Asia and Southern India, perhaps Ceylon, in fact. Main effort will be in China to do what all Chinese empires do best, and that is kill each other and destroy their own ancestors. Tangs will do whatever is necessary to sweep China and then contest the South China Sea. The Tangs had mixed success. They missed sweeping China by 1 territory. They lost 2 armies in combat. However, they defeated a Gupta navy in the Bay of Bengal. They ran the hands out of China altogether. They killed 3 of Scarlet's armies. They killed 2 Sung New armies, and they destroyed what was left of the ancient Shang dynasty in the Tarim Basin. The Chows were long gone already, so that's the last we get to see of true ancient China. Tang score 6 points for dominance of China, 2 points for presence in Southeast Asia, 3 points for presence in India, 3 points presence in the Middle East, 2 points presence in North Africa, 6 points for infrastructure, 22 points total for a grand total of 62 points. Surprisingly, it's still not enough to take the lead. Miss Scarlet is up with the Arabs. She will play civil war into the western half of what's left of the Roman Empire. From the Arabian Peninsula, Miss Scarlet will first launch a western campaign through North Africa with hopes of linking up with some of her rebels somewhere near southern Iberia. This will end the ancient Egyptians, Kingdom Kush, and the Carthaginians in one fell swoop. Next, she hopes to campaign north through the Middle East, then west through Anatolia, and finally into Eastern Europe. Admittedly, it's an optimistic plan, but we'll see what happens. None of Miss Scarlet's rebels survived, but they did kill 2 Roman legions in southern Iberia and the Pyrenees. This is a rough turn for the Arabs. The Western campaign met all of its objectives, but it took the Arabs multiple armies to finally defeat Kingdom Kush in the Upper Nile. The Eastern campaign ran into all kinds of trouble trying to cross the mountains into Anatolia, so much so that the Arabs had to cancel that part of the plan and switch to easier terrain farther south on the Upper Tigris. This is where their turn completely ran out of steam. Ultimately, the Arabs lost no less than 6 armies in combat. They killed 2 Carthaginian, 3 Sassanid, 2 Roman, 1 Egyptian, 1 Aryan, and 1 Kush army. They score 8 points for sweeping North Africa, 3 points presence in Southern Europe, 3 points presence in the Middle East, 2 points presence in Southeast Asia, and they get 5 points for buildings. That's 21 points total for a grand total of 61, now tied with Olive. The Chimeras go last in Epoch 4. That's going to be Mrs. Peacock. Chimeras might be the least desirable power in the entire game. They only get 5 armies, and if they want to make waves, they have to deal with really tough terrain. Anyway, all the Chimeras are going for this round is mere presence in both India and China. They will also claim the vacant South China Sea. Fortunately, Peacock can still score in the west with her busted up Roman Empire. The Chimeras had a perfect round. They didn't lose a battle. They successfully pushed into both China and India, killed a Tang army, they killed a Maurya and a Gupta army. Peacock scores 3 points presence in China, 3 points presence in India, 4 points dominance in Southeast Asia. Still a surprising 6 points for dominance in Southern Europe. And 6 more points for ships and buildings. 22 points total for a grand total of 78. She has a commanding lead now and draws her second preeminence token. Epoch 4 was the most surprising of all thus far. The big story was Mrs. Peacock. Rome's rivals proved largely ineffective. A main one, Byzantium, didn't even emerge as an empire. In battle, the Huns and the Goths took huge losses, and although they may have shattered the Roman Empire, its large fragments still scored heavily in valuable lands. The Khmers impressed this round. Who could have guessed it? And by the time the Fourth Epoch came to an end, the Scythians, the Shangs, Kingdom Kush, the Egyptians, and Carthage all slipped into oblivion. Okay, so that concludes the History of the World Part 1 session report. Stay tuned for the conclusion of the story. Part 2 will include Epoch 8 and Epoch 9 expansion rules. Thanks for watching.